Good afternoon, folks. We're excited today for the next big thing. It's a series of webinars by Eventcombo, where we have amazing industry leaders come on and speak about their experiences and their thought leadership on various topics. And today we have Melissa Jones-Clark, who's Director of National Accounts and Brand Experience at Meeting Tomorrow. And interestingly enough, Melissa has been at Meeting Tomorrow 12 years this month. So we're extra excited for that milestone, for that fact. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I know you oversee experiences of new clients, existing clients, and you've obviously been navigating the event space for the last 12 years, and even more interestingly so, over the last couple of years post-COVID. And we wanted to have you on so you could speak about your experiences and share on how organizations can wow their audiences through virtual experiences. And having said that, Melissa, welcome, and very much looking forward to spending the next hour or so with you. Thank you so much, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Sharush, and hello to everyone out in the audience today, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon. As Sharush mentioned, I am with Meeting Tomorrow, and we produce in-person, virtual, and hybrid events of all sizes. Also, as he mentioned, I have been at Meeting Tomorrow for 12 years, and I am very passionate about events. And so I'm really excited to be here today with you all to talk about new ways to engage your virtual audiences in 2022. So over the past 2 years, meeting planners have really done an amazing job with virtual events. They have sort of had this, magic bag full of tricks, and they've gone to the bottom of it and pulled everything they possibly can out of it, especially because it was a new format. And still, the top challenge that I hear from my planner clients is that engaging a virtual audience is just hard, right? It's just a really hard thing to do. So today I put together the top new ideas that I've seen in action that will really get your virtual audience excited about your event. So the way that I've structured this is that I've categorized just very high level ideas, and then underneath those are very tangible takeaways that you can apply to your virtual or hybrid event. So let's just jump into this. So the first overarching idea I have is to make it fun. I really don't believe that we have virtual event fatigue. I think we're just a little bored. If a Netflix binge has taught me anything, it's that I can consume digital content for upwards of 8 hours if I am thoroughly entertained. So the first idea that I have underneath this is to play a game. Games are a really great way to engage your virtual audience. And to illustrate this, we are going to kick off with a game today. So if you don't know this game, this is one of my favorite games, not just to play with colleagues or virtual audiences, but also at home. I have an 8-year-old and she loves this game. So this or that, if you're not familiar, I'm going to present you 2 options, and you're going to give me your opinion on each of them. So we're going to pull that up now. We're using a platform called Kahoot. Kahoot has a lot of different options within it. It's pretty cool. The way that you can play is that you can take your device and you can use that QR code and just take a picture of it like you would any QR code. Or you can open a new URL, you can put that game pin in, and you will be able to play this or that with us. So I definitely want to hear your opinion on the topics that I have. It is a very, very short game. It's only about 8 questions or so. And so please join. We want to hear from you. This is a great way to kick off virtual events, to get your opinion out there. We have about 5 people who have joined, 6 people have joined now. So we'll give a little bit of time for more people to come in and tell us. And one of my favorite things about this or that is there is no middle ground. You have to have a firm opinion. It is this or it is that. And so once we get that up, you'll see how it works. All right, I will give it just another quick second. We might have a small group playing today, and that is okay. All right. More people joining us. I'll use this opportunity to take a sip of water, actually, because you're going to hear me talking for a while. I am planning to read the questions as well, just because people like to sometimes read them. Sometimes people like to hear them. All right, we still have people joining, so I'm going to give it another second or so. And, you can also, this game, you can also play within platform as well, using like a poll function. So that's just another way you can play this game. We chose Kahoot today, but there are other ways that you can play this game as well. All right, so I think we have a handful of people here, enough people to play. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. It's going to count down, so I will not count it down for you. This is the mistake I always make. All right, 10 seconds for each. All right, metaverse. Do you think that this is overhyped, or do you think it's potentially cool? Let me know. Ooh, almost equal there. Okay. Not a strong opinion either way. All right, next question. Hybrid events. Should you have separate audience experiences, or should you have both audiences interact? People feel strongly one way or the other. Interaction. Okay. You're going to hear from me later on this, and you'll hear my hot take. All right, virtual backgrounds. These have been so popular over the last 2 years. Yes, always, or no, never. Sometimes people ask if my background is virtual. It's not. Yes, always. Okay. All right, next question. We're halfway through. Podcasts. More, please? Or there's already too many. It's too saturated. What do we think? I'm a lover of podcasts. More, please. I agree with that. That's my answer too. More, please. I love the podcasts. All right, corporate event stages. Talking about your corporate events. Do you want bigger and better, or simple and intimate? No in between. Oh, interesting. These are also almost exactly the same. I think I like simple and intimate these days. I think that's based on the trends of smaller regional events as well. Corporate swag. We all love corporate swag, or do we? Love it? Leave it. Love it. Yes, that's where I'm at too. I love all the corporate swag. Give me a hat any day. All right, 7 of 8 questions. Conference breakfast buffets. I've missed you, or never again? I know my answer here too. You've missed them? Oh, I'm team never again. I can't go back. I can't go back to the buffet. I love that you've missed it. Okay, last question here. And this is, an age-old question for sure. Hot dog. Is it a sandwich or not a sandwich? Sandwich, not a sandwich. And not a sandwich has spoken, and I 100% agree. It is not a sandwich. I don't know what it is, but it is something totally different than that. Cool. Well, that was really, really fun. Thank you to everyone who participated in that game. Like I said, it's something that is really fun for me to play. And honestly, games can be utilized for so many purposes. There is a ton of different ways that you can utilize games. So for example, The game that we just played, right, it can be used to find out information. So that can be information that helps you shape the current presentation that you are doing, the current event that you are putting on, or it can help to inform future decisions. So it can help you inform your next event, or just honestly anything else that you were hoping to find out information on. It's also a great way to energize people. I love to do it at the beginning of a webinar because it gets people excited, or as an icebreaker type of thing. But you can also use it for more practical and serious reasons, for fostering learning, and then also for reiterating any messaging that you actually have. In smaller settings or in smaller groups, I have played Taboo, Jeopardy. I've even done a virtual scavenger hunt using common household things, or virtual escape rooms. All of those things are really fun for smaller groups. So the next idea I have underneath here is to provide entertainment. So we have seen this done over and over again, but if you're thinking about your live event when you were in person, you always had entertainment there, and we should be doing the same thing for virtual audiences as well. And like I said, we have seen DJs, we've seen bands, we've seen dancers, we've seen artists, we've seen all of those things over and over. But what audiences are looking for in 2022 is how can they participate in and influence the actual entertainment that is happening. So if you take a cue from, social media sites that have like the live function, and you're thinking about content creators there and how they engage their audiences, I really think that we should take that principle and apply it to our virtual events for our virtual audiences. So some ideas that I have, one is you could have a poet that is coming on and creating a poem based on items in the chat, or a comedian that does, maybe rapid fire impressions based on what the audience would like to see, or even like a barista or a mixologist that could make something based on the audience interest. You can really use your imagination here. You can draw inspiration from anything, honestly. But the key here is that the audience is able to influence it, and that the entertainer can see it actually written out in the chat, which makes this an ideal form for a virtual audience. So another way to keep your virtual audience engaged is to vary your formats. So listen, everyone learns in a different way. Everyone absorbs information in a different way. And in a short form webinar like this, having me as a talking head in my office is totally fine and works. But if you have a longer program, if it is a few hours to a few days, it is a recipe for disengagement to have a talking head just talking at your audience for that entire time. So the first idea underneath this is to spread your event out over time. So this works in virtual only formats, but it also works really well for hybrid events. And this is going to allow the virtual audience to benefit from shorter sessions. And that is really a key to virtual events, is those shorter sessions. We recently had a client who did this, and they did 5 one-hour-long sessions over a month. And it ended with the keynote speaker, which was happening at the live in-person event. And so they worked really well together, and again, gave the virtual audience exactly what they needed, which is that short content. The next idea under here is to have impromptu interviews, or at least interviews that feel impromptu in some way. So this also works best for a hybrid event. You can have a news desk or a podcast studio set up on site, and people are coming into that booth and they're having those short 2 to 5 minute conversations, which again are really great for a virtual audience. I saw a lot of this happening at IMEX, and I really think that this is going to be growing. I think it's a trend. I think it's going to be growing in popularity over time. The other way that you can make this happen is to have like a roaming, MC that is totally dedicated to the virtual audience. So they can walk around to different preset stations and talk to folks that are there. I think about it similar to how you might be at home watching a red carpet event or something like that. This just really allows a change in scenery for the virtual audience. And again, that shorter format is such a key to making sure that they stay engaged. Use audio only. So platforms like Clubhouse have become really popular recently, and that's in part because it gives our eyes a break and allows us to use one sensory to really to consume the content. It also gives us some flexibility to get up from our computers and just engage in a different way. One idea I have is to partner with a podcast producer that is really specific to your industry. So, for example, I work in the events industry, and there's a great podcast called How Great Events Happen. And so if I was planning a longer form virtual event than this one thing I could do is have a meeting planner or someone from my team interviewed on that podcast and offer it as an audio only session within my virtual event. And the last idea under this category is to utilize props. And by props, I mean props that are additive, of course, but something as simple as a whiteboard, whether it is a digital whiteboard or an actual physical whiteboard in your space, can really boost the engagement of your virtual audience. I saw a virtual event last year. It was on creativity, and the presenter showed their ideas through drawings, and it really helped it to be engaging and more memorable, and something that I thought was a really great use of a prop. I touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but I thought that it deserved some more time, and so my next overall idea is to personalize the experience. So as a marketer, I think about this all the time, partly because the data shows that personalization is really a key in making sure that you are having a relationship, that people are having a relationship with your brand. And I think that that is super true about audiences as well, and especially virtual audiences. So the first idea here is to poll your audience. And I know polling is not a new idea, but I think that there is a missed opportunity here with what we do with the information that we actually collect. So hear me out. Ask your audience ahead of time what they are trying to get from your webinar. Then give them that, but tell them that you gave them that. So for example, if a majority of your audience that you poll says that they are attending your event because they really want to hear from industry experts, when you start the meeting, you could say something like, hey, we polled everybody that registered for this event, and a majority of you said that you were looking for information from industry experts. And so what we did with that is we went ahead and we added another panel so that you could get more of what you were looking for in this event. So the key here is iterating based on what you hear ahead of the event and then telling them that you did that for them, because that really feels like the event was personalized for them. Next is to focus on the comment section. For me, the comment section is where the magic happens. There is nothing that I love more than a good comment section. People are in the chat and they're commenting on what really resonates with them in a presentation. Maybe what they disagree with, answering each other's questions, really trying to solve common problems together. And one way to make this even better is to have a person or two from your organization in the chat, not only asking questions and answering questions, but really creating a conversation. And I have Kathleen from my team in there right now. She's illustrating that. So shout out to Kathleen. She's the best. Last year, I hosted an event that was about hybrid events. And at the time, we knew that budgets were a huge concern for hybrid events. They still are. But knowing that, we created some collateral, some information, some helpful tools ahead of time. And then during the actual presentation, we had folks in the chat dropping those resources in every time somebody said, but what about the budget? How do I know how to create the budget? And that was really, really helpful. By engaging your audience where they are and creating that conversation, you're really making their experience much more valuable. The next idea underneath here is to make content that is really specific to your audience. So recently I went to a virtual event and the topic was on the complexities of hybrid events, which I imagine if you've tried to plan one, you understand that, right? They are very complex. And one of the presenters made an individualized report using behavioral science to explain how we could get people who are a little scared to go back in person, how we could get them back in person. And it was very, very well received because it was clear that this was a niche problem that this presenter was solving, and also that it was tailored to this specific group of people. And so that was a really impactful presentation because it gave people tools to solve this problem that they were looking to solve. And then last underneath this category is to send personalized swag. And so I am not talking about your company's personal swag, although like I said, I love it. I love getting swag. I love our swag, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about the really cool boxes that we've gotten over the last couple of years as virtual events, became the main way that people were meeting. There was a lot of creative ways to send people things, but I'm not talking about those either. What I'm talking about are gifts or things that people know the second that they open it or they get it, that was for them specifically. And that can be as easy as letting them pick their own gift. There's tons of websites for that now. Or it can be as simple as when you send something, having a personalized note that just says, I can't tell you how excited I get when I open something and there's just a note that says like, hey, Melissa. I'm like, oh, this is for me. They knew my name. And it really does go a long way. There's also so much technology out there right now that allows for personalization. One idea that I am really, really into right now is utilizing NFC technology. And I am by no means an NFC technology expert. All I know is that it allows devices that both have it to communicate with each other. But I saw this idea that was taking one of these keychains that's on the slide that you can see and personalizing it for attendees. So the example that I saw, they took a keychain, they matched it up with a person's LinkedIn profile, and then when that person goes to network at an event, all they have to do is tap it onto their phone, and that sends the information to the person. So I thought that was really cool. If that piques your interest at all, definitely use the search engine, look it up, because there are so many great videos on how to utilize this technology. So the next category that I want to cover is networking and how to be intentional with it. So if virtual audience engagement is the number one challenge that I hear from planners, effective networking is the second thing that I hear from them. In our remote first workplace and just virtual event life that we have now, you have to be really intentional with building relationships online. It just takes more effort, and I think that's true across the board. So the first idea underneath this is to introduce people before the event. You can introduce them, you can get them comfortable with the platform that you're using. I have a lot of clients right now that are really taking their events and creating entire communities around them. And that really helps to create a bond between people that are coming and a bond with your brand as well. So that's one idea, is to introduce people before the event. They're going to be excited to see the people they already know at the event. The second is to keep it small, moderated, and specific. So for me, I think no more than 10 people in a networking session. This really allows everybody who wants to participate and to have dialogue to be able to do that. And when you have it moderated, that really keeps the conversation focused. It keeps it going if there's lulls. And it also sets the tone for kicking it off, because there's nothing worse than going into a networking session, and especially if you're an introvert, being like, I have no idea where to start right now. And then if it's a specific networking topic, that allows people to, one, know what to talk about, and it gets all the right people into the room. to have that conversation. And I think one interesting idea with this is to have attendees, have your virtual audience do pre-work ahead of time. I mean, very similar to how if you were going to an important internal meeting, you would do prep work. Have them do that for their networking sessions. That's just going to make that time spent more efficient and more powerful in general. Allow people to network where they are. Don't try to force hybrid networking. And I know that we saw this and this or that, and a lot of you are very into that cross networking. And I know this is a hot take, but don't force it if it doesn't need to happen. And I know that it needs to happen sometimes. There are times when your virtual audience is going to need to network with your on-site in-person audience. But if it is not additive to your program, let the virtual audience network with the virtual audience and the in-person audience network with the in-person audience. It is going to be a better experience for them, and it is going to be so much easier for you too. I promise. And then lastly here is to offer VIP networking opportunities. So this is going to be valuable to a segment or a subsegment of your virtual audience. This can be, having them network with the presenters or with the keynote speakers. Or it could be that you are taking an industry leader in your industry, somebody that they would be really excited to sort of rub virtual elbows with and put them in a networking session. And that's just going to make that a more valuable experience for the people who that's important to. And my last big idea of the day is to put your attendees in the driver's seat. So you are likely already doing this in many ways, probably with different tracks, etc. But there are other ways that you can do this as well. And I just have one idea under this because it is something that is really important to me. And it is to provide resources. I can't tell you how many times that I've been at a virtual event and I have really, really wanted to learn more information. But in order to do that, I had to talk to a real live salesperson. And I didn't want to do that for many reasons, right? So one is I wasn't ready to buy yet. And I was a salesperson for many, many years. And I never want to waste someone's time if it's not the right use of their time. Or I just didn't know enough about the product or service yet to engage. I really just wanted to learn more on my own. So if you are doing a product launch, if you have a sponsor speaking and they have information they want to share, give your audience ways to explore without having to talk to a salesperson. Please, please, please do that. All right, great. Well, that is what I have for you today. I hope that you have at least one fresh idea that came out of this that you can apply to your next virtual or hybrid event. I promise you your virtual audience will thank you if you just apply one of them. Someone's going to come up and join me soon for Q&A so that we can answer your questions. But if for some reason we don't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to me directly. If you think of something later, I'm happy to help. My information is right there, and I can help you in any way possible. So thank you again for your time.
Melissa, that was amazing. And I have a bunch of questions for you myself. And I've got a list of questions from the audience as well. Wonderful. So I think we'll kick it off. And I'm going to not join you on screen because I will ruin the image. I think you're amazing as it is. I definitely will not join you. Melissa, again, thank you for that wonderful, insight into the different, areas of focus that event producers, event managers can introduce into their virtual experiences. So, the one of the main things that stuck out at me, and this question is for me, is the aspect of community. You brought up the fact that there is an opportunity and there is a desire for folks to connect, before, during, and after. And I was curious, in your personal, travels, in virtual events and in events in general, what's been your most, I guess, delightful experience as far as a tool goes, or as far as a actual community experience goes? Uh, I'm asking because I have not seen one, and so I'm wondering if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that I go to a ton of webinars. It's part of my job to make sure I understand what is going on in the industry, what trends are. And like I said earlier, I spend a lot of time in the comments section because that to me is where the community first started before clients started to create communities around them. So I will say that one of my favorite things that I've seen and that I've been to and participated in is the idea of doing a series of events. And I think, Sarush, that we talked about this earlier, but when you are able to take your event and create 5, 6 events that are around a similar topic and really use a lot of marketing ahead of time to get people excited about connecting ahead of time. When I go to those series of events and I see somebody that I've already networked with, I get really excited and I'm in the comment section and I'm like, hey, Scooter, it's so good to see you. Like, how have you been? And I feel like you can see that energy in the comment section when you are creating a series of events. And so for me, that has been the most successful part of this trend of community is the marketing plus the series.
Got it. Got it. I couldn't agree with you more, Melissa. I think folks get so focused on the event itself, they forget about the before and the after. And I think that's really, really a great point. And I ask for selfish reasons. I think the audience knows, but we actually built a platform called Community specifically to address this. So now attendees can chat with each other, connect with each other, create groups, share documents. Basically, we built a LinkedIn for events.
Yeah,
And
that's so smart. That's so smart because that is where people want to go to get to know the other people that are interested in these same things. And they can download the content and they can really, like I said, they can really get in there and see what's going on. So I'm so glad that you guys created that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It allows for a perpetual event experience, right? So
Yeah,
even when the event is
absolutely.
over, it's never over. So again, love the fact that you brought that up, Melissa. Thank you for that. Melissa, this is a interesting question, right? And it's kind of funny when I just saw this, I giggled inside. But someone asked, as an event attendee, what do you bring to a virtual event? To a physical
Yeah.
event, we sometimes bring things, business cards or, our laptop or whatnot. But to a virtual event, it's a really nice open-ended question, I think. Very thought-provoking.
Yeah, that is
Would
a
love your
great
response.
question. I love whoever asked that question. Thank you for that question. That's a good one. I would say the number one thing to bring to a virtual event as an attendee is your knowledge, like what you already have in your head, the experiences that you already have. That is where the learning is going to happen. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's in the comment section and you just answering somebody else's question, or if it's in a more formal networking session. Like for me, the goal of every event has a different goal. But when you are actually attending that event, a big part of that and a big part of the powerfulness of events is that there is a whole group of people with a whole lot of different experiences in life that can help to inspire, shape, motivate, teach each other. So that would be my answer. My answer would just be your experiences and your knowledge is the best thing to bring as an attendee.
Totally agree. I guess come ready to participate, right? And engage. Another question by Deepta, Melissa, is how many moderators should a virtual event have? And, in our case, we have unlimited rooms. So I guess that question goes twofold. If in a single room, how many moderators, I guess, what would you cap that at? And I guess at an event level also, what would you cap that number at?
Yeah, I am excuse me, in general, a proponent of like more people and more support is best. So for example, today we had one person in the chat. Depending on how many attendees that you are expecting, you might up that number. When we are supporting virtual events, there's also like the virtual event support aspect of that. So we say between one person on the back end for every like 500 people, depending on the complexities. So it really depends on your exact event. I do think that it is very successful to have a dedicated moderator for the virtual audience specifically. If you do have a hybrid, if you are just having a virtual event, one or two people in the chat, a host or MC, and then one person per networking room. And if you don't have somebody from your organization that can, another way you can set that up really successfully is when you are creating the networking room is very clear instructions to people, which is like, pick a moderator when you get in there, because there needs to be someone who is a leader of the group, whether it is a formal leader that is somebody you've assigned, or an informal leader that is an audience member who might be more of an extrovert or who is just more comfortable.
Gotcha. Here I am, Melissa. Hi. So Melissa, I think a couple of more questions, right? So how do you maintain engagement between the virtual audience and the in-person audience in a hybrid event? I mean, this is now a question that we see over and over again, and there's no one single answer, but would love your insight on this question by Padma. How do you maintain engagement between the home audience and the physical in-person audience in a hybrid event?
Yeah, so I'll give two answers to this. One, which is, if you don't have to do it, don't do it. If you don't have to, give them separate experiences. If it is additive to your program and you do need to do it, the best ways are to keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Things like polling and Q&A are tried and true, and they are ways that you can have, especially if there's an event app, there is a way that you can have the people on site and the virtual audience participating. It's just really important for the moderators to make sure that no one feels forgotten. So if they are a moderator or a host on site, that they are talking to the virtual audience, that they are saying, this is a question from our virtual audience, so that no one gets lost. If people actually need to network, the way that we have seen this done successfully is you can have a virtual networking lounge. You can have things like iPads on stands or monitors where there is just a station set up for people to engage, if that is important to your event.
Sure. Makes sense. Melissa, two more for you that just came up. What are, and we know there's several virtual event tech platforms out there. What are some of the criteria? What's some of the advice you can share with fellow event managers when it comes to selecting a virtual tech platform?
Yep. Yeah, I can speak to that. And what I always say is that we are platform agnostic. We are always saying whatever the best platform for your specific event is, they are tools to make your event come to life. So there's a couple of things that you can look at when you're trying to select a platform to use. The first is your budget. What is your overall budget? That is going to be one thing that moves the needle. There are some platforms that are very cost effective. There are other platforms that have all the bells and whistles that are going to be very expensive. So just depending on what your event budget is, that's one place to start. The second thing is just, what are your goals of your event? What are you trying to accomplish, and what needs to happen in order for that to happen? And so, if you need a lot of engagement, you're going to want to pick a platform that has things like Q&A, polling, gamification, the ability to have breakout sessions and general sessions. If you don't have all of that, or if you are streaming out, let's say, to social media sites, there's a totally different way you can go on that. So I think it depends on what your goals are and what your budget is, and those should be the driving factors for your platform selection.
Maybe more with you, Melissa. Thank you for that. Melissa, last questions, not to put you on the spot, but some predictions. What do you think is going to happen with our industry going into the rest of 2022, going into 23, and going into 2046?
Oh my goodness.
Near future, distant future. Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, it's so wild in general. And if you would have asked me this question, this is March. So like 2.5 years ago, I might have said something totally different. But, the pandemic forced us into just really as meeting planners and this industry to be super innovative and change and meet clients where they are. And that, I believe, will always be true. folks in this industry will always meet their clients where they are at, regardless of what happens. If I had to give a short-term prediction on events, I believe in what we're seeing from clients, they will be smaller. So in-person events will be smaller. They will be more regional. And we know we've seen so many benefits of virtual events over the past 2 years that they are here to stay, whether it is, a straight virtual event or if there is a virtual component to an in-person event to make it hybrid. So that for sure is here to stay in different capacities. If we are talking long term, and I just had this thought yesterday, like I said earlier, I have an 8-year-old, and my 8-year-old and her friends are always on video games together, like they're playing dolls but together. And so I think long term, the generation that is 20 years from now, I do really think that there will be a lot of avatar forward, very video game like events that happen, because that is how they grew up, and they will be very comfortable with that platform.
Brilliant point. Again, couldn't agree more with that. Thank you for that insight, Melissa, and thank you for joining us on the next big thing. Really, really, really appreciate it. I had so much fun, Melissa, listening to your insight and watching the presentation, and of course the game that you introduced to the audience. And I look forward to many more conversations with you. And thank you again, Melissa. Really, really appreciate it.